Welcome back to Ida Silawo. The 2024 Austronesian Language Revitalization Forum successfully came to a close on November 6 in Kaohsiung. Organized by the Indigenous Language Research and Development Foundation in collaboration with the Council of Indigenous Peoples. The forum centered on the revitalization of Austronesian languages and cultural exchange, underscoring Taiwan's significance as the ancestral homeland of the Austronesian language family.
This year's forums on language revitalization focuses on creating the language-friendly environment. Experts and scholars from Taiwan, Canada, New Zealand, and the Marshall Islands have been invited to discuss strategies and practices for revitalizing Austronesian languages, facilitating bilateral exchanges, sharing experiences in language revitalization, and establishing long-term communication platform.
The measures now.
Through Ida Spacious, we are honored to interview two distinguished guests who participated in the forum to gain insights into New Zealand and the Marshall Islands about their goals and approaches to language revitalization. We are honored to welcome our first guest, Marshallese Language Revitalization Project Manager from the Alele Museum in Marshall Islands, Racine Carbon Vengata.
Hello and Yahweh.
Okay, we understand that the Alele Museum plays a key role in cultural preservation in the Marshall Islands. Racine, could you share with us about the origin of the name Alele? And does it hold any special symbolic meanings for the museum?
So the word alele is a traditional Marshallese basket, and our ancestors used it to hold the most valuable belongings of each family. And traditionally, the eldest woman carries the basket and it passes down to the next female in line. And in reflection to that, that is why we named the museum Alele, because it is where that we store our most valuable belongings for our culture and traditions.
So what kind of material of the basket?
Traditionally, they would hold, so back then they used shell for form of money. Mm-hmm. So they would put shells in there, they would put medicine, healing medicine, and those are two examples of most valuable belongings that they would store in the basket.
Could you introduce Alele's mission and its efforts in language revitalization, particularly how it strengthens Marshallese cultural heritage through data preservation and educational outreach?
So the mission of Alele is to promote lifelong learning through cultural literacy, traditional means, and Alele has a lot of collections of oral accounts from the past that were recorded from elders and cultural knowledge holders that have long passed on. So we have lots of materials that we could use to strengthen our oral traditions and continue on the legacy that our ancestors have bestowed upon us. So we are always trying to find ways that we can use these resources to pass it on to the next generations to come.
So how about the educational outreach? Are there any kind of activities?
So yes, Alele has a lot of activities. For one example is the Marshallese Language Revitalization Project. And we have used a lot of this collection to implement it into the lesson plans that were delivered in the project. And also the library portion of Alele, we have a lot of readings and storytellings that we provide for the patrons of the library, especially the children. And also we have a yearly festival, a cultural festival that is hosted by Alele. And during this event, we also use stories that we have documented to share with the participants of the festival every year. And I also forgot to mention that we also have students from various schools come in very regularly to conduct research for their school work regarding Marshallese oral traditions. And so they come to Alele as a main source of research to complete their schoolwork.
Thank you.
As you mentioned about the Marshallese language revitalization project, the project has faced budgetary and resource constraints. So, Roxanne, what resource do you think will be essential in the future? Additionally, do you see potential for collaboration between Taiwan and Marshall Islands in educational and language resource sharing?
It is true that the Marshallese language revitalization project has faced budget difficulties. Even if it's very well sought, many parents would like to enroll their children in the project, but due to limited funding, it is not really a regular activity at this moment. So I think that support from the government would be very helpful, as this kind of project is very necessary for this time, for this generation. And also partnerships with other organizations that play related roles in terms of Marshallese language, in terms of language revitalization. So for example, maybe collaborations with the public school system, where we can work together to continue this initiative that is needed for our younger generation. And in terms of partnerships with Taiwan, I feel that there's a lot that we can learn from the trainings offered here. We are just starting off, and I feel that we could gain a lot of insight, a lot of experience from partnerships with Taiwan to exchange knowledge and how to go about promoting indigenous language revitalization.
As you mentioned before, the public school system, do you currently use Marshallese language storybook or lesson plan in local school, elementary school or junior high school?
So in the private schools, they don't teach Marshallese. Maybe 1 of 4 they have Marshallese lessons. But in the public schools, they do have Marshallese curriculum, but themselves have expressed with us that even their Marshallese curriculum is very weak at the moment, and that is something that they would like to start redoing over. And they have mentioned that they would like to partner with this project so they can improve the Marshallese curriculum. So maybe partner together to help each other improve the Marshallese language curriculum in the public schools.
Okay, thank you.
And Roxanne, could you kindly share your thoughts on presenting and participating in this forum? And in your view, how does such international exchange benefit Alele Museum's language revitalization efforts? You just mentioned partnership with Taiwan.
Yes. I did mention before that we are just starting over, and this is my first time attending an Indigenous Languages Forum, and I have, in just one day, I have learned a lot, and I feel that if we continue, Alele continues to attend these types of forums and types of spaces where we can come and share and exchange with other indigenous communities that are striving and doing very well in revitalizing and strengthening their indigenous language. So just from this forum, I feel that it's very important and very helpful for Alele in terms of getting support and insights, how to implement policies and strategies that are shared during these spaces. It is very beneficial for us.
Okay, thank you very much, Roxanne, for accepting our interviews.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now let's welcome our second guest for today, Investment Management from the Matawai Maori Language Revitalization Committee, Nehana Brabender, Nate.
Kia ora everyone. Tēnā koutou katoa. Ai, ko nei taku ingoa he uri tēnei o te whanau urua taupare o Ngāti Porou.
Okay, Nate, we understand that you also participate in the Austronesian Language Revitalization Forum last year.
Yes.
And to start, could you please kindly share your thoughts and feelings about your presentation and experience at this year's forum?
Yeah, sure. This year's forum, I have enjoyed hearing the different strategies, the different thoughts and focuses that everyone has been presenting, and hearing the revitalization efforts here in Taiwan across all 16 different groups of indigenous peoples and the 42 languages.
Yes.
It takes a lot of work and a lot of effort, and so I'm both inspired and impressed by what everyone is doing to revitalize the indigenous languages here. In terms of how I feel about our presentation, I think what we aimed to do is resonate with all indigenous groups here on a very similar journey on how we all were affected and the impacts that colonization and policies had on our indigenous languages.
Yes.
And so we share that same history and we share that same story. And so then the hope is to be able to share policies and measures that we have used since to rebuild some foundations for us so that we can restore te reo Māori, our Māori language, to its rightful place in Aotearoa.
Okay, as we know that language revitalization requires multifaceted support,
Yes, yeah.
Including policy, education, family, and community involvement.
Yes.
And are there specific obstacles, either policy related or cultural, that have proven especially difficult to overcome, and how to address them, in your opinion?
I guess I'll start with what are some of the challenges that we're facing at the moment. It's funny you ask. While I'm here now in Taiwan,
Yes.
Our current government plan to present a new bill, a potential piece of legislation that reviews our founding document that we hold as our contract for partnership with our government, which is Te Tiriti o Waitangi. What our current government aim to do is to review the treaty principles, which will effectively strip away indigenous people's right and our indigenous rights. And so that is one of the biggest challenges we're facing today. And I guess one of the ways that we are counteracting that is te iwi Māori, we have a sense of autonomy and self-agency and self-determination. And so right now, friends of mine, Iru Kapakingi is leading a movement where we will march from the top of the North Island down to Parliament.
Yes.
It's about a 900-kilometre walk. And so they'll walk from the top of the North, actually further, top of the North down to Wellington, the capital city, to march in protest of that bill because it goes against the founding document of our nation. And so one of the things that we do to address those challenges is we activate ourselves, we activate our families, and we activate our people to move. And so that's one thing I really appreciate about Iru and how great he is at gathering people for that. And I think some of the other challenges that we have in our role, Te Mātāwai, our role is already written in another piece of legislation, the 2016 Māori Language Act. And what it does is that empowers our organisation and our governing body, our board, to act in partnership with the Crown. And so all things to do with our Indigenous language and its revitalisation must go through us first. And so activating our role to hold them accountable is another way to address that challenge. And then the third thing that we are observing is that despite what government might do, despite what policies might be introduced, we're seeing families, we're seeing young people normalizing our indigenous language, normalizing Te Reo Māori. And so no matter what the government might try and introduce as a piece of policy, it won't have an impact on the revitalisation of our language, because we're seeing young people, we're seeing this, what we call the kura kaupapa generation, the kohanga reo generation. They're taking up arms and they're leading this Te Reo Māori revitalisation journey almost as if irrelevant to what the government planned to do with the language will have no impact, because this language is forever. And they have this attitude that we love, its passion for the indigenous language. So activating those young people and their influence to impact others, activating that influence and unlocking that influence in their communities is really, really important.
So Nate, outside of the education in domains like media, technology, social network, how can Maoli language be further integrated? And what strategies might make Maoli a competitive tool in modern communication? Yeah,
really good question. Really, really good question. I think social media inherently is a community. And so what we're seeing outside of language revitalisation, we're seeing a generation of people, young people, where their community is all online. And there are some young people who have more in common with someone online than they do their next door neighbour. And so how can we utilise social media to normalise and integrate Māori into that space? Is we're seeing a lot of influential young people normalising te reo. Yes. There's this wonderful young lady from Wellington. She is part of Victoria University, Te Here Ngāwaka. And all she does is she'll wake up in the morning, before she goes for a run, she'll do a quick hello in Te Reo Māori and talk about what she's doing for the day, and go for a run and record her run, and she'll just speak Te Reo Māori. And something like that has picked up so much traction, and a lot of people love how normal it is to just use that language, not only on that platform, but just to communicate what you're doing during your normal day. We're also seeing a lot of people on social media, particularly on TikTok and Instagram, using that to do like fun videos that express culture, that express cultural practices and traditions. And so seeing social media utilised in that way is really, really special. So then we aren't so much influenced in terms of what content should we be developing based on what the rest of the world is doing, but rather what content can only we provide the rest of the world. Yes. And that is content around our culture and our language, and that's what we're seeing a lot of young people do at the moment.
I'm really impressed by the efforts by the younger generation of Maori. Yes. Can you share more?
Yeah, absolutely. I think again, I'll come back to the kohanga reo and the kura kaupapa generation that's coming through at the moment. I went to a kohanga reo when I was younger, but I didn't go to a kura kaupapa. And what we're seeing these young people doing right now is they're leading discussions in Te Reo Māori to do with law. They're leading discussions in Te Reo Māori to do with policy. They're leading conversations in Te Reo Māori to do with the everyday. And they're leading conversations in Te Reo Māori to do with education and learning. And so we have different social groups. My cousin, Te Matahiapo, he is part of an indoor netball team, and they only speak Māori to each other in that netball team. And so we're seeing the normalisation of Te Reo Māori in different contexts and different immersion domains at different times, and young people are leading it. It's really special to see, Yes.
So you must be one of them.
Definitely.
Okay, thank you very much for accepting today's interview.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Let's take a short break. For more stories from Ita Sila World, please stay tuned.